Fat Guy Flies RC here. We're coming to you from the man cave. I started thinking about just some basics in RC, and maybe this chair away. And started thinking about that some of y'all that get into this hobby and you think, well, I want to get in this RC hobby. I've gone out and I've purchased myself a fancy transmitter, and I understand that a transmitter sends a signal to a receiver like this, and that's what operates the plane. But what do I do? I mean, it's fine and dandy when you look at it on a YouTube or you're reading some black and white manual, but how does it actually work? And what does it mean when they say bind? This term bind, you've heard this term. What does it mean by bind? And so I'm going to show you, and the scenario is that you've got yourself a transmitter, you've spent some time on a simulator, you know, and you've flown a few planes, and hopefully you've bought yourself a high wing plane like this, and now you're ready to actually start flying a real plane. And you know, understand that how to fly a plane from the simulator, but you've never really done it, and you went to the hobby store and they had an old used plane there, but you had to buy a receiver for it, and the shop owner said, well, you got yourself a Spectrum transmitter, so he's going to sell you a little Spectrum AR620 antennaless receiver, and he tells you, oh, that's so nice because it doesn't have a bind plug. Well, you don't even know what binding means, let alone bind plug. So now you're home and you're thinking, great, when I get down to the computer, I click the mouse, I start flying, but now I really got a plane here, and I got a battery, and what do I do? And I opened up this hatch, and look at all this nest of wires. Oh my goodness, what do I do? Okay, well, I'm going to tell you what to do and explain how the bind process works. Basically, the binding process is a procedure where you give power to your receiver, either by a separate battery, BEC, or directly from the ESC of the plane. And then once this has power, you start a procedure. In this case, it would be a bind plug or a bind button. When you hit the bind button down and then you have power to it, it opens this receiver up for its first time locking in its signal to a transmitter. What that means is that once this plane with its receiver is bind to this receiver, then they only talk to each other and no other airplanes are going to get involved. This transmitter is now locked to this one and they talk to each other. So this transmitter can now, because it's bound to this receiver which controls this plane, now this transmitter can tell this plane what to do. Can activate the throttle, move the control surfaces, and you're able to fly your plane. So that's what binding means. It's the initial procedure where you're going to get these two items, your transmitter and your receiver, to become friends. And they're friends until you unbind them, okay? Or you delete the model in your receiver. So anyways, that way they'll talk. I said, well, that's fine and dandy. Now I understand how that works, but oh my gosh, what do I got? I got all these wires. Well, this is where you need to go ahead. You can get yourself a servo tester. I use an old-fashioned one with an old ESC, but you start the process of elimination. Okay, so you're going to say, well, process of elimination. If you know the ESC, electronic speed control, would make you think speed control, how fast the thing goes. And I know from reading my manual and looking online that that means throttle. Well, with Spectrum, the way they number, you look on this little receiver, and you'll see numbers going down from 1 down to 6. 1's a battery, and then 1 down to 6. 1 is always throttle. A receiver you may buy that may actually say throttle, or it might just be channel 1, but it's always going to be, that's always going to be your throttle where you're going to plug your ESC in. So, and remember, the top side of the receiver is always your lightest wire. Now that wire might be yellow, it might be white, Whatever the lightest color is going to go up or towards the top of the receiver. This is a process of elimination. Now, with spectrum, the next channel is always ailerons. Okay? Well, which ones are my ailerons? Well, usually there's going to be a Y, which means two wires are hooked together to one wire. And I see a Y here. Let's see if this is ailerons. I'm going to hook my servo tester up to it. Remember, light to light, dark to dark. And see what happens. And sure enough, my ailerons are working. So that must be the wire, or the servo wire, that controls my ailerons. So that's going to go in the number 2 spot. Okay? Next on a spectrum receiver is always going to be elevator. Well, I've got these, I know my elevator is down there at that end, and I've got 3 wires. Well, yeah, I got 3 wires coming out. So we got to figure out which one is which. Okay. Uh-oh. That's my flaps. Well, that's not, I don't need that one right now. Put that off the side. What's this one? Hey, there's my elevator, my up and down. It's got 3 wires, it's got a light on top there. I'm going to put the light wire up there in the number 3 spot. So now I have my throttle, my ailerons, and my elevator. So I know that one should be flaps. So this one, next one you're going to have is going to be your rudder. Oh, rudder's moving, so that means that's rudder. Just by process of elimination, you're figuring out what's what and where's where. Okay, now this plane doesn't have retracts, but it does have flaps. Flaps are going to go, if you look at, and you can, if you're going to program your transmitter, you can put your flaps on any open auxiliary channel. But I always like to put mine in my last channel, or the furthest one out, or channel 6. So I know this was flaps, so I'm going to put flaps out there. And that leaves me an open channel number 5. Well, what do I do with that? You don't have to do anything to it, but there is power to it. And I've got this funny other set of wires sitting here. I wonder what they do. Let's see, I got black on top here, so let's go dark to dark. Hey, my lights just came on. So that's my navigation lights. So now I can plug that in, and since the black, I'm going to put it down. I'm going to put it in where I would have had a retract or a gear channel. So now, okay, all my wires are used. Everything is plugged in. So now what do I do? Now you're going to actually bind your airplane. You're actually going to make this thing work remotely for the first time. Now, there's a simple way of doing this. Okay? With this type of receiver, it's not a gyro or it's not a stabilized receiver, so it doesn't really matter where you put it. The idea is to have a receiver, if it's not dependent on where it's at, closest to the middle, where it has the best signal. So I'm going to put my battery in that I've got charged and ready to go. Oh wait, hold on. I got this ESC thing in the way here. Let me get it out of the way. Okay. All right. Put my battery down in there, because that's the way it goes in there. Must be a guy put some Velcro there. That must be where it goes. And I'm going to take, and I know that I got to give power to my receiver. What you want to do, before you do that, you're going to want to go to your transmitter. You've read your manual on your transmitter, and you know you got to set up a new model. Okay? So you're going to go in there, and you're going to set up a new model. You're going to name it or whatever you want to do. And you got a new model, and you're going to turn your transmitter off. And that should be what comes up as soon as you turn your transmitter on. So we're not going into transmitter setup right now. We're just showing how to bind a plane. So anyways, I got my transmitter ready to go. And it would be the same if this was a one-plane transmitter. You wouldn't do any of that. You just simply bind it. So the first step of binding a plane is applying power to the receiver and the rest of the plane now. Okay, look, everything came on. Of course, there's no communication. So I've got to get this receiver to transmit or to receive a signal from my transmitter. I got to get these two items talking to each other. They said that when I put power in, hit the bind plug. And when well, not use a bind plug, but hit the bind button in lieu of a bind plug. It would be the same thing. If you had a receiver who had a bind plug, you'd put the bind plug in, you give it some power, and it would start flashing. So now we're going to pretend we're putting a bind plug in, but instead, see that little flashing light? I hit the bind button. So that says that it's ready to talk to and receive a signal and lock into a transmitter for the first time. So what you do, you get your transmitter, no matter what transmitter it is, you find out where your bind button is. In this case, on DX9, it's up top. Hold it down, turn your transmitter on, and keep holding that down.
Binding. DSMX 22 milliseconds. Telemetry. Bind complete.
All right. Now, look at that. We have communication. Look, I'm not touching anything. Now, I know that's throttle, so I'm not going to touch it. Now, whatever transmitter you have, before you do anything else, ask me how I know this about the hard way. Set yourself up a throttle cut. Now, you have it referred here. We're not doing, like I say, we're just going to do this for safety right now. Okay. All right, we're setting up a throttle cut because I don't want to accidentally hit the throttle and hurt myself. Uh-oh. Okay, my throttle cut for me is F and it's on. But look, turn the throttle on, get away from the everything. Look at that. Put the throttle cut back on. I have communication now with the plane. Since that receiver doesn't really have to be secured, I mean, you can put down some double-sided tape or something, keep them flopping around. What did I do with my battery hatchet? It went flying somewhere. But there you go. That's the basics of how to talk to a plane. How to get your transmitter and everything to talk to each other. Okay? Let's grab that battery hatch real quick. And just so you know, this is a DHC de Havilland Beaver here. It used to be orange and white, now it's just white and black. And this is the example. You buy a second-hand plane. You know, you just don't have any idea of the buying process. But that's the buying process. That's what it is. You're making a procedure, or you're doing a procedure to where the receiver will now accept commands from your transmitter that transmits the signal to the receiver. And that's the basics of it. I'll put this up on YouTube, obviously. And if you have any questions about this, please put it in the comment section. Hit me up with a like and subscribe, please, if you're new to my channel. And I like doing these little simple tutorial videos because no one taught me. I had to learn the hard way on my own through a lot of money and accidents and stuff. So I'm trying to put it back out there on YouTube. Maybe if I teach you something, it might save you a headache that I had to go through on my own. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. God bless y'all. And let's have a good summer. We're going, it's already, the calendar says here in Florida that it's just now spring. It's summer, but that's Florida. Bye-bye.